Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for stopping by today. I'm so grateful that you're here. I wanted to come on here today and share with you guys some of the books that I read in the month of October. Now, I've been gone a little bit from BookTube because I had some personal challenges in my life. In the last year, I've undergone 2 open heart surgeries. And if you're more interested in what my personal challenges have been, I'll make sure to link my life update right up there so you guys can go and take a look at it. But in either case, I definitely want to go and ahead and share with y'all what I've been reading. I've had a little bit of downtime, so it's been a little bit easier to pick up some books and really get into them. One of the first books that I want to talk to you is actually a series, and it's by Reid Carson, and it's the Gold Seer trilogy. And I heard about this trilogy from Miss Holly Berry's here on YouTube. I enjoy watching her videos, and anyways, she recommended it, so I went ahead and picked them up. I got them from the library because you guys know I really don't purchase a lot of books unless I can't find it at the library. Then I'll go ahead, either purchase it or get it on Audible, but in most cases I simply just check them out from the library. The first book is called Walk on Earth. The second book is called Like a River Glorious. And the third book is called Into the Bright Unknown. In either case, all these books center around a young girl. Her name is Lee. And Lee is born and raised in an area of Georgia. Lee is born with a very, very particular skill or talent or gift, whatever you want to call it, and it is that she's able to sense gold. This book is set during pioneer times and the gold rush times, and so this is a gift that is very, very much desired. I think nowadays as much as it would have been back in those days. But in either case, she suffers some tragedy in where she lives, and her and her best friend Jefferson and a group of people that come along in the ride decide to cross the states and go from Georgia to California to join in with the gold mining. And in the process, she suffers quite a bit of upheaval, of tragedy. She is kidnapped. And I don't want to give away too much, but those are things that you'll come into the book very quickly, and it might give you a little bit of more interest towards the book. But in the process, she falls in love. She makes friends. She is able to identify with all kinds of people, not just the ones that were just like her. The book deals with prejudice. It deals with Native Americans and African Americans and how our culture has abused them severely. Mexican Americans. It's just such a good trilogy. It's very well rounded. I enjoyed Reid Carson's telling of it. There's God interweaved throughout the all the books. I don't believe that she's a religious writer, but you could see faith throughout the books. I thought it was integral to the books. I highly recommend the books. It does deal with some, she calls her skills witchy powers, but I see it more as a gift. It's an ability that she has that is, when used for good, is able to help many people. And so I can't recommend these books enough. I think they're really, really good. And if your taste in reading is similar to mine, if you like historical fiction, if you like there's a little bit of romance interweave throughout the book, but it's not a sloppy romantic book. It's really not. And this book is definitely a page turner. It will you want to know what's going to happen because there's just so many twists and turns throughout it. This series. I don't mean just the book. The first book was a little bit slower to me than the second and the third, but I understand why it had to be set up that way. Sometimes the first book is either the best in the whole series because it's what the author does to capture you into a trilogy or into a series, and then sometimes the following books are a little slower. But in this case, I believe that the slower one was the first one. The second one to me was my favorite, and then the third one is just really, really good. So guys, that's my take on the Gold Seer trilogy. I literally just did that 3 times. I could not get those words out of my mouth. In any case, let's move on. The next book I read was The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and the writer is Taylor Jenkins Reid. This story, again, the story's set, I would say, like in the 1960s, 50s, almost all the way through to, let's say, the 1990s, if I remember correctly. And it's based on this actress. Her name is Evelyn Hugo, and Evelyn Hugo is a very, very popular actress. And it takes you from her as starting up as a young teenager getting to California, making it on movies, and then it proceeds to tell the story of her 7 husbands. Yes, she married 7 times. I think that the author borrowed very liberally from actors that, were very much real, from Elizabeth Taylor, a little bit from Marilyn Monroe. I could see where Ingrid Bergman was in this book, and then also, let's say, characters like Rock Hudson and even Montgomery Clift and James Dean. You can see these people throughout the book, but she just borrowed a little bit of their story and interweaved it into it to make it a really interesting fictional tale of Miss Evelyn Hugo. I think that the book was very well written. It had a bit of a twist that I didn't expect. It was not my favorite book that I read this month. I know that a lot of people have really, really enjoyed this book, and I think it was a good book. Was it my favorite? No. Was it well written? Yes. Was it interesting? Yes, very much so. It talked very much about the society within the filming industry back in those days, and just how difficult it was for women, and how hard it was uh, for people to be honest about who they are in that world. And so for that reason, I would have to, if I were giving it thumbs up, so let's say Gold Seer is 2 thumbs up, I would say it's a 1 thumb up. It's not a thumb down because it's not a bad book. It's just not quite as interesting to me as, let's say, the Gold Seer trilogy was. The last 2 books that I read this month were both by Michelle Moran. The first one is Nefertiti, and the second one was Cleopatra's Daughter. Now, Nefertiti is a book based on the real life character or person of Nefertiti. She was one of the queens or pharaohs of Egypt during their time of reign, the pharaoh's reign, and it was quite a character. This book is told from the point of view of her sister, Mut is what they would call her in the book, Mut non Gami, I think it is, or something like that, but her name was Mut. And it's told from her point of view because as the story is told, Nefertiti was always destined to be the queen or the bride of the pharaoh, but Mut became her supporting cast. Mut became her lady in waiting, and she was always there supporting and encouraging her sister. But in the process, Mut was never able to truly realize herself, and how she is able then to separate herself from that life of court, of a king's court, and how she's able to become her own person. She was very frustrated because she felt she was always in the shadow of her sister Nefertiti. I think that this book was very good. I think that the historical aspect was very well written and very well captured. I felt very entertained throughout the book. I thought it shed a little bit of light on the pharaoh and how a person can get lost within their own power and actually kind of forget about why they're there to rule. Is it for their own power or for the protection and the prosperity of their people? I think that the book was a good read. I would give it a 1 thumb up if I'm going to use the thumb up system here. I wouldn't give it the 2. I think that, at times it kind of lagged a little bit. But if you are into historical fiction and you are, kind of wanting to tap your feet into something like that, I do recommend it. And I hope that I'm giving you just enough information to intrigue you about wanting to read it, but not so much that I've given you any spoilers. So that's my take on Nefertiti. The next book I read by Michelle Moran was Cleopatra's Daughter, and this book starts at the moment where Queen Cleopatra loses her throne and her 2 children are taken captive by Octavian, a Roman leader, and they are then placed in Octavian's household. Octavian then goes on to become a Caesar. As this book progresses. And so these are things that I'm sharing with you. They're a part of real history. And so I don't feel I'm giving you any spoilers. The basis of the book is basically how Selene and Alexander, which are twins that were born of Cleopatra and Mark Antony, then learn how to navigate within Roman society. They're both very well educated children. They are children of a queen. It's believed that Queen Cleopatra spoke, I think it with something like 6 languages. I mean, she was just a very, very intelligent woman, and she made sure that that was a priority for her children. It shows how they learn how to survive in a completely different culture, and not only survive, but then eventually thrive. Most of the book is based on true historical events. However, there are some things that are part of the fictionalized version, which Michelle Moran, I think, did very well. Again, there are parts in this book, just like in the book of Nefertiti, where the book kind of almost like lags a little bit, but it doesn't mean that it wasn't an entertaining read. Again, if I'm going to use my 2 thumbs up or 2 thumbs down, I would say that this is a 1 thumb up. It doesn't even get a thumb down because it was a good book and I did enjoy reading it. I would have to tell you, if I'm honest, I'm going to tell you that there are areas where I felt that the book was just a little bit slow. That, however, in the end, I did enjoy the book. I enjoyed how she weaved in so much historical information and how she was able to allow you to feel just how truly brutal the Roman era was for people that were not Roman citizens, and then just how difficult it was also for women in that era, and how they were just not really valued in that time. And so this book comes from the point of view of a young woman, Celine, who is daughter of one of the greatest queens in history, Cleopatra. So that alone should tell you just where the inner battles come for Celine and her brother Alexander. So guys, those are the books that I read in the month of October. I think that they were all really good. I really enjoyed them. I didn't have any that were just complete sleepers or that I just couldn't finish, you know. I did finish them all. However, of the 6 books I read, I would definitely have to say that my favorite has been the Gold Seer trilogy by Reid Carson. I enjoy Lee, the main character. I enjoy Jefferson, who is her childhood friend. And I love Becky Joyner in the book. I think she's just such a charming woman. And the Sergeant. And I won't go any further because you'll figure it out as you go on and read these books as well. Thank you so much for stopping by and spending a little bit of your time with me today. I hope that the little bit I've given you about each one of these books is just enough to get you interested in maybe picking one of them up. I hope that you guys have a really good day. And guys, be blessed.